Okay, guys, welcome to the URBONUS podcast, and I'm glad to introduce my regular, beloved co-host, Karşıyaka Izmir scorer, TBT analyst, basketball mind from Ohio, Errick McCollum. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Always good to make an appearance.
And as a guest, I'm glad to introduce my old friend from Lithuanian times, the brand new Malaka from Olympiacos Piraeus, Thomas Walkup. Kalimera or Kalispera. Yeah.
Kalispera. Yeah, super pumped to be on here. I told you off air when I got your text, I was excited to be called up to the big leagues. So it's an honor. I'm pumped.
Yeah, you're getting over those steps. And I shared a short list of major topics that we are going to discuss on this podcast. But since I have this great combination of offense and defense specialists that would make a great lineup for any team in the EuroLeague, I have to throw this thing. I have to spark some fire between you. So let's say there's this big debate and you have this one major argument or 1 minute to explain everyone what wins, offense or defense. The ball is yours.
Oh, that's a good question. That's a great question. I think you have to have defense. You have to have defense. Offense for sure wins you games. The old adage: offense wins you games, defense wins you championships. If you look at all the best teams, year in and year out, they have good offense, but they have great defense. And it's just the backbone. It's the consistency, and it's something that everybody can do. If you have a team that's bought in, everybody can play defense.
I think defense is very important. I do. But based on the salaries that I have seen throughout Europe and the NBA, teams, GMs, presidents, owners, and fans value offense more. And the salaries show me that the highest paid players seem to be scorers more so than defenders. You look in the NBA, you look in Europe. So I do value defense. I know it's needed. We need guys to lock up. This is why you're so valuable. You lock up, you play good defense, you have good size, you're smart. But you got to pair you with a guy who can score the ball, and then it makes it beautiful, right? You got to put the scorer with the defender. I think it's the yin and yang. You need each other. It's like a man and a woman. You know, you can do good by yourself, but you're better when you're together.
My first realization of that was my first year in Žalgiris. I won the Defensive Player of the Year in LKL, and Charles came up to me and said, "Congratulations. Nobody pays anything for this." And I was like, "Man, that thanks, coach, but that hurts, man."
Yeah, that's tough. I was inspired. I just wanted to throw this question because I was inspired by great Kevin Durant's, I wouldn't call it Twitter thread, but he had this fun discussion with random basketball fans worldwide when he tried to win basically every argument why offense is over defense in all the basketball conversations. So yeah, it was a hilarious thing. Kevin Durant is really worth a follow. But yeah, on a more serious note, we have some serious stuff to discuss, and basically it's just crazy. This offseason was, to explain how crazy this offseason, I would say that like less than a week ago, we had this Kemba Walker transfer bomb. Then there was Nikola Mirotic refusing to go to Partizan, although he had the commitment to the club. So now we have Juancho Hernangomez signing with Panathinaikos, and this whole sequence of 3 marquee players signing or not signing with some teams. These transfer bombs happened likely like in 1 week, and it's basically every single week something ridiculous happens. But let's for sure we'll discuss some ridiculous things that happen in Athens, Thomas. But let's start with Nikola Mirotic. The main reason of his refusal to sign with Partizan was that he had threats and he felt unsafe by signing to the Belgrade's club. He didn't want to divide the country and he decided to sign somewhere else. And although Partizan responded that Mirotic even met the president of Serbia, I mean, things that can happen probably only in Serbia. And the Serbian president assured that nobody will touch him or his family, of course, but nonetheless, he didn't want to, divide Serbia, and he blew off the deal. What did you take from this whole situation? What was your reaction, guys? What were you thinking about safety, about the real reasons why, he stepped back from this whole situation?
First off, it's not a great look for a guy to be getting threats. And this might be an unpopular opinion, but it's this sort of care, it's this sort of commitment, it's this sort of passion that like makes this game special. It makes basketball special. It makes that rivalry special. You can't get that anywhere else. And for sure it's wrong. You should never step outside of the court. Stuff should never be brought outside the court, especially when you're talking about another man's life, his family, all that stuff. But at the same time, it's that sort of passion. Again, don't take that too far, but that sort of passion that makes these sort of rivalries special. That's why the Greek derby, the Belgrade derby are so special, because it's like that hatred for the opposing team and that love for your own club that make it like that.
Yeah, I think it depends on the stage of your life that you're in, right? So Nikola Mirotic is, older like myself. He has wife, he has kids. And so when you're at that stage, you like peace, you like serenity, you want calmness. You're not so worried about yourself, but we take a lot of road trips, we travel a lot. It doesn't take long for people to start to realize you live in the area once they start seeing where you're shopping, where you're going, where you're routinely being seen. And there are crazies in every place. Doesn't matter if you're in Europe, America, Asia, there's crazies everywhere. So that's something that is uneasy for you, at games and certain situations. So, I understand if my wife or, my child or my son or daughter felt any type of threat or I felt uncomfortable with it, I have no problem. I don't care if I said I was coming to a team. My family is number one in my life. Mm-hmm. So I would put them first. I respect the decision he made. When you're younger, you're single, it's just you. I wouldn't care about any of your fans. I'll go play where I want to play. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'd like to see you try something. But it's a different aspect when you have a family. So like for me, I understand that's part of Europe. It's unfortunate. I'm okay with you hitting my DMs, talking a little trash. Oh, you're this, you're that, whatever. Might even get racial. I don't care. But once you start to talk about harming the family or something, that's when you turn it into something else. So I think this is where you have it. And Serbia denied themselves of an excellent basketball player and something that could have been even more special for the country. Even though you're not together, it's just like Finner and Efes, right? They're not together. But if, somebody can go far in the playoffs, you think like it looks good for the country. Same with Panathinaikos, Olympiacos. I know there's hatred there, but you would think if somebody has to win and it can't be you, why not your fellow Greek man or your fellow Turkish man or your fellow Serbian? So maybe one day they can get to that level, but obviously right now they're not there.
This whole situation, especially about threats, was a little bit weird to me, because if that was about threats, for me, Partizan's position was surprising, because I think that if there were serious threats, I think that Partizan would have reacted way more serious and more supported to the player, and they would have used this platform, to against their rivals. I mean, they could blame Red Star for blowing one of the biggest transfers in Serbian basketball history, and could say that, hey guys, this got off the limits. It's not normal anymore. Rivalry is great. You really love this rivalry, but it's just too much. We cannot go that far. Instead, they announced the press release where they're actually behind the lines, and maybe even not behind the lines. Basically, in their statement, they said that probably the main reason was different. And I think I won't quote them word by word, but it was something like, in the upcoming days, you're going to see that it was not all about that. They put all those examples about the Serbian president and stuff like that. So that was the only weird thing, because at first I thought that, I mean, this is over. As European basketball, we're losing too much. This huge passion thing went off the limits. It shouldn't be like this, and we're losing one of the biggest transfers in the recent years. And that's sad that threats, fans who cannot control their emotions, who cannot think rationally, they start bluing transfers and just signings. And it's not even Sloukas' case. It's just Mirotic, and moving to one of the Serbian teams. But at the same time, I really don't want to speculate on this thing, because as Errick said, it's a very sensitive personal thing. Your or your family's safety shouldn't be questioned. If you don't feel safe, if in any case, in any scenario, you don't want to check the limits of some crazy fans and how far they can go with their threats. If you feel that there's at least a little concern about your, or especially your family's safety, I mean, I completely understand Nikola Mirotic. So I'm not going to try to speculate. Just this one aspect, how Partizan reacted, was weird to me, and kind of shifted the focus of the whole situation.
Yeah, and also if he's going to be dealing that for the next 2 years, next 3 years, it's not fun. Basketball, as you know, there's many different parts of why you would sign somewhere. Sure, it's the money, the city, how you would enjoy life, but that's not fun to be fielding death threats and threats to your family. That part isn't fun. You don't have a peace of mind. And I'm a huge comfort zone guy. I like being in the same place because I have comfort where I am. So I get the side that he's coming from. And when I say that this sort of love and passion creates the rivalry, yeah, it's true, but also there's a balance to that.
Yeah, Thomas, you actually, with your first take, you the whole situation, the way you describe this whole situation, it feels like it's a blessing in disguise, having these passionate fans, which makes European basketball, unique. At the same time, I just wanted to hear you guys on, did you have any situations where you felt unsafe, basketball-related situation, whether it was on or off the court, and what kind of protection do you need as a player? Because we see situations in some countries where fans are throwing things on the court, and some crazy shit is being thrown on the floor actually, and it can damage. It can hurt really bad. It can have a big impact on the player's health long term. What kind of protection do you expect? What kind of protection do you need? Maybe even in this Mirotic situation, maybe did you expect some reaction from FIBA, from ELPA, some more vocal statements from the leagues involved, like ABA League or EuroLeague?
I think the best thing you can expect probably is, do you really want to go through having security outside your house all the time? Do you really want security traveling with your kids to go to school? Like, you want some type of normalcy, but if you really wanted to go somewhere, you could have security all the time, a little detail. For me, I think on the court, I usually feel pretty safe, but there were some times, I think I was playing in Greece and I was at Panathinaikos and we were playing Errick, and it was the cup, the semifinal. And it was just like, the game probably should have been paused, canceled. The fans should have been kicked out, but it was packed. Over capacity. They were spitting, throwing cock and Louis, spitting on us, throwing coins, lighters, all types of stuff. Like, it was to the point where you were getting hit with things like mid-play, and they had this shield above the bench, above our heads. But if you looked above it, it was just nothing but nasty spit, Louis on top of everything. It was just a bad environment. It was dangerous. The floor was wet because of the spit. It was horrible. And that was the first time I was like, I feel unsafe. Like, I could tell the referees were scared. Like, every call was like amplified. I was like, there's no way we're going to win this game here. Like, we'd have to be up by 20 to win by like 7 or 8. Like, it'd have to be a clear. You'd have to hit everything. But like, that was the only time I felt unsafe on the court. Other than that, like, you might go somewhere. I think I had an altercation I told you guys about this year where I was at the mall and a dude got like little road rage, angry because, he had to wait a little bit. And, he pulled a knife out. So I felt unsafe then. But that's not something that normally happens. But that was a time. And, some things you can't prepare for. It's just life. Unfortunately, everybody's not stable. Everybody's not built the same way. Everybody doesn't have the same morals or ethics. But as far as like being a player and making a decision, knowing I'm going into a hostile environment, if I can control that, I probably would with a family. Because I'm telling you, when you think differently once you have children, like your whole mindset shifts. You're no longer picking teams based on yourself, your career. You're also thinking about how your family fits. Do they have the schools for your kids? Is everything going to be comfortable? Like, everybody thinks you just pick a team. No, there's so much more that goes beyond the team, because there's more to basketball than just the game of basketball. Like, we have to live there. And, like, there's some decisions players make. If they can handle it, good for them. There's some decisions I wouldn't be comfortable making, or I wouldn't make in my career. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just the level of your comfortability.
Yeah. And, man, to your point, it only takes one crazy one guy that, mess up your life, mess up your situation. So no, it's not something that would ever happen often, but if it does happen and you're in that situation, like that's life-changing stuff. The only time that I have felt, I wouldn't even say unsafe, but probably the closest to unsafe was this year in the finals, game 4. We were up big on Pana. The refs called the game. We head into the locker room, stuff's flying down on the court. And it wasn't that I felt unsafe until we hear mutters of, oh, they're trying to get back here. The fans are trying to get through the tunnel. Then it's like, okay, we're trapped back here. We're in the locker room. There's nothing to do. If they get back here, it's like the fight begins, So luckily it didn't come to that, and I don't even know how close it was to even getting to that. But then on the other hand, the other part of that was how to regulate this stuff. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know if it's extra security, if that's up to the country, if that's up to the club, if that's up to EuroLeague, who that's up to. But it never should be just total free for all. There should be at the very least a plan put in place of, hey, this is out of control. These are the steps that we take.
Yeah, I think it should be fair to put some rule book or something which would say, if there's at least single thing thrown on the court, that's it. You have to play in the empty seats. You have to kick out all the fans, because why should they be allowed to throw something at players, trying to hurt them or just to even disturb the game? So sometimes I'm just surprised what it takes in some leagues to finally to play behind the closed doors when incident starts happening even during the warm up. And I remember this situation about Luka Doncic. I don't remember where he played last year, I think. And some fan threw a bottle of water or something. And of course, all the Europeans made fun because they stopped the game. They found the guy who threw this bottle and they said, oh, they made this whole drama of it. But at the same time, that's probably a rational solution to the situation, because why should he throwing something on the court? What if he hurt somebody? What we are waiting for? So it's a conversation without having a win-win solution, because at the same time, this whole environment makes European basketball unique, but at the same time, it's not normal, it's not fair, and how we could find balance. Although I really believe that we have amazing fan bases, even just by making noise, by even going to gyms over capacity, they already create unique atmosphere, hostile crowd, chanting, all the stuff. This whole thing, it doesn't add anything except from discuss, especially if you're neutral fan. So yeah, it's a difficult conversation that we're having, but I'm just surprised that especially in EuroLeague, they're not dealing with those kind of issues. But somehow with the domestic leagues, there are no limits. So, and this year, a lot of important games in the playoffs of domestic leagues finals were disturbed. So we should do something, because then, as Errick said, if you're a family man and if you have a quite equal offer from Japan, it's a easy choice. You're going to Japan just to avoid all the stuff that is happening here, and we're already losing a lot of talent. With Japan, with Australia, with the G League, with free two-way deals, with the NBA salary cap and stuff, we're losing talent already. So, and I know examples why that players specifically going to Japan, let's say, just to play in that kind of environment because they don't want to deal with this shit in Europe. So, yeah, it's tough. Let's get back to basketball stuff. And to close Mirotic topic, from what I heard, it's very likely that he will go to Milan. I know that, this whole Mirotic saga made us, exhausted, but whole reporting where he's going to, he's close to Partizan, he's close to this team, Panathinaikos, now it's Milan. But from what I hear, Monaco's out of the race. Panathinaikos claim they're not considered by Mirotic, and they also signed Juancho, Hernan Gomez, and Balcharovsky. And I'm hearing from multiple sources that it should be Milan. How do you like this fit? What do you think about this fit? Milan having Kyle Hines, Alex Poitras, Ismail Kamagate, Nicola Melli, and Johannes Voigtman, and Gianpaolo Ricci, and some other guys who can also play at the front line. And then you put Mirotic on top.
Luckily for Mirotic, he can play anywhere. He's the probably above anywhere else or above anybody else. You can put him on any team and he'll fit in. But if you need a guy that plays low post, he can play low post. If you need a guy that can play on the perimeter, he can play there. If you need a guy that can pass, he can do that. And he's so versatile. He can play as the 5. That you can really put him anywhere. Doesn't make sense for him to go to Milan. Probably not for the on the club side of things. When you already have so many bodies. But that doesn't mean he won't fit in well. Like I said, he can fit in anywhere, and he would fit in anywhere.
Yeah, I like it. I think too many times this year their offense lagged. They struggled to manufacture any points, to get consistent looks, especially when Shields got hurt. When Shields went down, it was just a different team. Like nothing flew, nothing was easy. There was no rhythm to it. Everything was just a struggle, like it was stuck in the mud. And then Shabazz Napier came and he kind of jump-started them a little bit. And I think with him leaving, going to Red Star, you add in a guy who can, in those laws where you don't score, in those moments where are we going to get a good look? And like Thomas said, you can run him in that pick and pop situation. They signed him under the low from Alba. He's fast, he's quick, he can get downhill. Not really a pick and roll guard per se, but you can put him in those actions, and then sometimes you can just dump it to Mirotic right in the post, and he can go to work. So, I think they need someone to kind of anchor their offense, and I think he's the guy. And it puts the Shields in that number 2 option role where he can really thrive. Where we've seen it when Milan made their Final Four run, where he was really efficient and successful in that season.
Yeah, according to Bibalytics, Milan had the 16th worst offensive rating last season. And due to the reasons Errick mentioned, of course, injuries were involved as well. And what's interesting that their best and most used lineup was with Shabazz Napier, Billy Barron, Shawan Shields, Johannes Voigtman, and Nicola Melli. So in this lineup, you could easily switch Mirotic with any of those big men, whether it's Voigtman or Melli, most likely Voigtman. And you could easily see them, being successful with Mirotic in the lineup. So yeah, I think that this is the case where if you have a chance to go after Nikola Mirotic, it doesn't matter who do you have on your front line, you just go for that chance. So, and especially now when actually Milan lost a lot of free agents they were targeting. For instance, Shabazz Napier, Darius Thompson. From what I know, there were more names, and now it's kind of okay, Milan. It's your turn to sign somebody big, and even though in the beginning it looked like an obvious choice, but there was Partizan involved, some other teams. Now it feels like this whole circle will be closed with Milan getting Mirotic. But it's Mirotic saga, so you never know what's coming up next.
There might be 3 more chapters to this. Who knows? Exactly.
And what's interesting that this whole thing overshadowed Kemba Walker's signing by Monaco. I mean, they made noise worldwide. I mean, they're signing a 4-time NBA All-Star, 12-year NBA veteran who averaged 19 points per game throughout his career, All-NBA member in 2019. And I think that he will be third by NBA All-Star experiences among the all NBA players that ever played in Europe. And I think that his resume puts him in like top 3 or top 4 American players, NBA players who played here in Europe. And the list includes, I think, Dominic Wilkins, Deron Williams, and Allen Iverson. And I would put, Kemba Walker, no matter at what point of career he's coming here, he built a huge resume in the NBA. But injuries are involved. I mean, there's the reason why he's coming to Europe. He had big injury problems. He barely played in the last few years. So, what kind of impact do you actually expect for him to make in the EuroLeague next year?
So before I could access it, I had to, do a little digging, talk to some people on the channels, and I was just wondering, a guy who makes $100 million in his career, like, why is he coming to Europe? Most guys don't make that move. A lot of guys who played in NBA, first class treatment, chartered flights, suites, not practicing much. It's a pretty good setup, and a lot of them aren't built or want to come to Europe. And from my research, I found out that Kemba is a guy who just loves the hoop. He's a guy that loves the game. And so hearing that, I thought, okay. So you're talking about a guy who loves basketball, who loves the game. It's not about the money. It's not about that. He just wants to play. And then, what better place than play? If you're going to choose to come to Europe, why not go to a place that people pay to vacation to? You go to Monaco, the sun, the beautiful, the high class living. It's an easy place to sell. So for an NBA guy to come in here and to adapt, I think there's no better place as far as living than Monaco. I mean, it's going to feel as close as you can to your luxurious life of being an NBA All-Star. So, I think that would be fine with him. I'm curious how him and Sasha will kind of interact. But he's from New York. He's tough. He loves the game. So I think he'll be good. Now, the only question is his health, right? How are those knees, all those years, all those NBA games, those 82, those playoff runs, all those crossovers, those step backs, those snatches, the stop on a dime, that takes wear and tear on those knees year after year. So I'm wondering, is he now healthy? I know last year in Dallas, he didn't have any signs of injury. And if he can just say be 70% of the Kemba we know, I think that's enough to be dominant in the EuroLeague. I mean, to score. He was already so explosive and fast. Even if he loses a step, still going to be at another level. So it just depends on if he can stay healthy. Can he get through the whole year? I imagine he's going to bring whatever he needs. If he has a family or if he has a girlfriend or wife, whatever, I'm sure, he'll bring them with him. That would kind of ease the transition, because that's just something you don't want to do alone. So if you have those that you care about close by, I think it can help you adapt. And I expect him to be a force. Him and Mike James in the backcourt is probably going to be something special. What do you do with the lineup? It doesn't matter if you can get that type of talent. You just give him the ball and you let him play.
Yeah, you have basketball players and you have hoopers, and he's a hooper. I believe after so many years in the NBA, there will be some sort of adjustment period for most guys. But at the end of the day, it's hoops. It's a different style of play, but that applies to guys that are less talented. That he's the type of guy that you can maybe think, it'll be different defenses, it'll be less spacing. How will he adjust? But then you throw the ball out there and just let him go, and he looks like the best player on the court. So I think there will be maybe some small adjustment. Maybe he gets them done and figured out in training camp. Maybe it takes him a month. But once he figures it out, and like Errick said, if he stays healthy, I see a lot of success, for him and that squad. But it'll be really, really interesting to see how a guy that's played in the NBA for so long comes over here and what he thinks of it. If he's surprised by things, or if he's like, yeah, I've seen this before. This is cool, and he fits right in. So I'm really, really intrigued by the situation.
Yeah, I think it's a low risk, high reward move for Monaco, because he has, his knees are extremely vulnerable in terms of getting consistent playing time, but at the same time, And from what also I heard from NBA people, he has to be under consistent health management because of his knees. But at the same time, from what I heard, he might be used only for EuroLeague games, which means you will play 1, in some cases 2 games per week. That's a huge difference compared to the NBA schedule. From what I heard, you already have Mike James, Jordan Lloyd, and Elie Okobo on your front line. Matthew Struzell is also over there. Some of our guys can cover backcourt minutes. So it's not like he's going to play 30 minutes per game. It might be something around 20 minutes per game. And from what I also heard, his contract, I would say team-friendly in terms of if things go wrong with his health, it's not like Monaco will have to pay him the full salary. So, it's kind of a safe move for Monaco. And besides all the skills that he brings to Monaco, an extra that he can give to the club. For instance, if Elie Okobo gets injured, something happens with Mike James, you have Kemba Walker, tremendous, scorer on your team, and they will always have somebody on the court which, will maximize the threat to your defense. And I believe it will make Thomas' life even harder, because I heard that you said that Mike James is probably the toughest matchup for you because it's like 24/7 job. And now we have Mike James and Kemba Walker next to him. And I'm not even, taking credit away from Jordan Lloyd and Okobo. It's just brutal. It should be brutal. You should get, paid extra for games against
Thank you. Now we're talking. I like where the direction of this podcast is going now.
Yeah, and besides all those things, from what I also heard, I also did my research, and I heard that he's one of the best humans in the NBA, and he was one of the most beloved teammates in the NBA, and he also brings, I would say, elite leadership, which is also important for this Monaco team. To have such a high caliber player next to you, who's a hooper, who's coming here for the hooping reasons, who also brings this strong mentality and wants to help you win games, feel confident. I really think that Mike James at the beginning could have questioned this move. I remember that he also questioned Elie Okobo signing last year when they already had Jordan Lloyd and Mike on the backcourt, and already saw some nice tweets by Jordan, like put the number of how many balls you'll need for Monaco team next year, because that was this big, take that how many balls Elie Okobo, Lloyd, and Mike James will need. Now this question gets even more interesting with Kemba Walker, but again, they're bringing really solid veteran who has some red flags, but at the same time, as I said, the reward might be really high, and they're already getting the reward. Monaco made a worldwide move. They made a huge promotion for themselves at first, and let's not forget, they don't have the A license. They're trying to work their name for getting this, long-term deal with the EuroLeague. And at the same time, they're helping to promote the EuroLeague basketball. And I really love the reaction of many European basketball, let's say, representatives, starting from players or even to EuroLeague social media guy who's in charge of EuroLeague social media, because there's this NBA memes Twitter account with like 500,000 followers, and they posted something, sad how Kemba went from the all-star to overseas player. And the guy from the EuroLeague, John Kader, if I pronounce it right, he tweeted, Kemba, aka overseas player, will live in Monaco, which is better than living in 95% of NBA cities, earn better than his last season in the NBA, and join an actual basketball league and not an entertainment product. It's kind of subjective, but you got this point, and this tweet was viewed by 8 million people. Nikola Batum also made some good points about how overseas basketball is disrespectful. So at the same time, with all the rewards you might get on the court, they're already getting a reward off the court. So it's huge, not just for Monaco, but for EuroLeague basketball to have such high-profile names getting over here.
And I would say the problem will be the number of balls. I think the problem will be, are they okay with playing 16 to 22 minutes? Will you be mad if one game you play 15 minutes and someone's hot? It's okay to do it once or twice, but what if it becomes a common trend? So the problem won't be the amount of balls. It will be, will everybody be humble enough to take a minute reduction, because it's inevitable. You have 4 very high level guards I mean, you have to find a way to get them all in the game, and it's only 2 positions unless you're going to play them. When you play small, you can play them in 3 spots, but then you take away from that 3 position, and they have Diallo, Blassingame, Ottawa. They have guys there too, so I think maybe we'll see more 3-guard fronts to please the minutes. But if he goes only 2 of those guys, there's going to be minute reductions, and we'll see if it's all fun and games and smiles at the end of the year.
That's actually the follow-up question that comes next. I mean, when it starts triggering players, I mean, when you're in this, packed environment with this traffic in your position, whether it's a backcourt or front line, where's that, line that shouldn't be, crossed?
I think when it starts affecting guys would be when it affects their production, when it affects their numbers. If you start seeing a dip in your numbers, that's like the first thing. Winning, if you're winning, this kind of takes care of everything. Everybody gets paid off of winning teams. If you're losing and you also are playing less minutes, you're scoring less points, you're making less assists, it's about to fall off the wheels there. And then thirdly, and probably most importantly, is when guys see a change in their upcoming salary. If you're in a contract year and things are going okay, and then your agent starts saying, hey, maybe this team is looking at you, and you're like, well, that's not who I thought would be looking at me. And then maybe we're talking about this contract, or you're thinking, well, now I need to score more, but you're not playing the minutes. Then things just start to snowball a little bit. So I think that the bottom line always is winning cures everything. But if things start going bad, they really start to snowball.
No, you make good points. Those are exactly the 3 reasons. You can tolerate some stuff when you're winning, and you can be, all right, we're winning. As soon as those losses come and you're on the bench a little bit more than normal, or you're not closing the game. I mean, we saw it. Olympiacos was winning all season, all year. Guys probably weren't happy. I mean, it's not easy to play 10 minutes and then sit 10 minutes, play 10 minutes and 10 minutes, but you can't argue with results. They're at the top of the league. They're getting to the Final Four. They're in the finals. Everyone has to shut up. This is what's working. Coach can point to success. But what if they were struggling to make the playoffs? Now one person starts bickering, now 2, now 3, now it becomes a cancer. Everybody's bickering. And so that's the difference. So if they just start the season strong, they keep winning, they'll be fine. But the moment some guys aren't closing the game, the moment adversity strikes, it could be tough. And your character will be tested, and your competitiveness will be tested. Because a lot of times you're not a bad guy. You just feel like you can really help the team. And you're frustrated that the role or the restrictions aren't allowing you to help the team. I'm not sure about everybody's motivation to leave. I know if you look at the Olympiacos situation since they're here, Sloukas leaves. If they win that championship, he probably stays. Think maybe he stays. But when you're already probably agitated with your minutes, you want more role, whatever the case may be, and then somebody throws more money at you and the leading role in the minutes you desire, and you lose in a ship, even though you had an excellent season, it's like, see, that's why we lost, maybe. That's the mindset of a competitor, not a bad guy, just someone who I could have did this or I could have did that. And so I just use that as an example. I don't know his thinking in doing that, but this is what happens over the course of a year. And players, you go home, and if you're any type of competitor, you're thinking about the game 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, thinking about those possessions, what you could have did differently. And that sticks with you. And it's hard to just brush that off, especially in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, and I think that every athlete, you can be the most unselfish athlete, out there, but you still have selfishness inside of you. You want to be the one playing, you want to be the one making the plays, and you can give everything to the team, but the best athletes are the guys at the end of the game that want to take the last shot. They want the pressure. Look at Kobe Bryant. He got called selfish his entire career. You know what? A lot of guys would call him a hell of a teammate. So I think that selfishness part of it is great. but there's a balance to it.
Mhm.
There's an interesting question coming from Beyond Plus member. We have a BasketNews Plus platform where our subscribers on 3 different subscription levels can get some extra features, including URBONUS Q&A podcasts, articles behind the paywall, WhatsApp community group where we're directly talking to those people, and where I would say we have most quality basketball discussions between fans. And one of these features includes making questions to the podcast hosts and guests. So one is coming from Nikos Monaras, and it's a little bit related to this whole situation of keeping everybody happy, let's say. And Nikos Monaras wanted to hear Thomas' reaction. We will go with your reaction about Sloukas' move later, but what do you think of Bartzokas' rotation? Is it a source of frustration or preservation of the players? And, how to try to keep happy guys in this system, which is challenging for every basketball ego, I guess.
For sure, preservation. Guys always talk about, they want to be in a comfortable situation. They want chemistry. And I think that's what that provides. Is it typical to substitute like that? No. But at the same time, I'm, the last 2 years, I've been extremely comfortable with the group that I'm playing with. We mix it up in practice, so it's not like in the fourth quarter when I'm in there with a different group, it's foreign, but I'm a huge fan of it. You know exactly what you're getting. You know that you're gonna play in the game. You don't have this, feeling of a cloud over your head of, man, if I miss a couple shots and make a turnover, he's gonna yank me out. Like, no, he's gonna leave you in there. He trusts the guys that are in the game, and I like that sense of comfort. I like that sense of chemistry that I have with the guys on the court because I've played so many minutes with that exact group.
Yeah, and basically, probably if you do it right, if everything goes well, you're gonna play in the fourth quarter. That's probably this unique thing of this whole system. He checks players in the first 3 quarters and puts the basically best lineup of the game to clinch the game, right?
Yeah, and that's easy for me to say, and I understand this. That's easier for me to say when I'm playing 20, 25 minutes per game. So I understand that. Maybe a guy that's in Isaiah Cannon's spot, where he's playing less minutes, even though he's playing great, it's tougher. But also, last year I was the one that was coming out in the first quarter before everybody else, and at the same time we're winning. Everything's okay. Everything's solved. But I am aware that my opinion is what it is because I'm playing a lot of minutes. But we've talked many times as a team. Guys have opinions about how much they should be playing, how many shots that they would be getting. It's not like everything is perfect all the time throughout a 10-month period. But coaches reminded us, guys, this is Olympiacos. We have 12 guys here that can play. There's only so many minutes. There's only 40 minutes at every single position. It's not easy to get everybody 30 minutes. It doesn't happen. The math, it doesn't add up. So it just is what it is. And being able to take it one step back and realize you're a part of something bigger than yourself is the part that the last 2 years we have been able to do as a whole unit.
Thomas, do you think there was a way how to please Sloukas' needs with the current philosophy and the system of Olympiacos? Would other players, and would they have understood, if, let's say, one player is getting a different treatment after all those years, after all those successful years, I would say, playing this current system, and then there's this sudden change? How do you read that situation?
Sure, there was a way, but at what cost? Coach Bartzokas is the 2-time Coach of the Year. He's obviously proven himself. The guy has Greek League titles, EuroLeague titles, been to Final Fours, and he's done it by his own system. And that's what he wants. He believes in something and he stands by it, and I respect that more than anything. You know, it doesn't matter if it was the last guy on the roster to go into his office and say, I want to play more, or the first guy. You know, he stood by what he believed. And, you know, I also don't think that, you know, if you look at his Fenerbahce numbers versus his Olympiacos numbers, it wasn't like he was playing a ton less. You know, maybe it would vary from game to game sometimes, but yeah, I think I know that I side with coach on that, and I don't know all the details to everything that went down or anything, but I really respect coach for saying, hey, this is what I believe in. We have 10, 12 guys that are equal, and we're about winning here, not about anything individual. And yeah, you know, Slew made a decision. It is what it is. But I'm happy to stand behind Coach Bartzokas on that one.
I think there's a way you can do it, but I don't think it would have put the team in the best position. You got to think what's going to make the team win, right? I want to please players. I want players to be happy. But first and foremost, I need to make this organization win, because coaches get fired left and right. So I got to do what's best for the team. And, you know, he wanted to keep his job. And he did it with Sasha. Sasha Vezenkov played like all the game. Like, I mean, but you're talking about an MVP. You're talking about a guy who was dominant all year. So I'd say you can choose one offensive player and one defensive player. And I think that's why Thomas plays so much, because the EuroLeague is loaded with scores and talent, and you need someone to go out there and make life difficult. And, you know, most nights he's going to be there. He's going to contest shots. He's going to make it harder on them. And sometimes guys are going to hit shots, but you need a guy who can kind of change the rhythm of the game and kind of cut off the head of the snake, sort of say, basically make life hard on the offensive player. So when you have the MVP out there making life hard on the other team's defense, and then you have a defensive MVP candidate making life hard on the best offensive player, you can really change the game. So with those two guys, yeah, you probably extend more minutes there. But you can't do that for everybody else unless they're bringing something in that game that's going to allow you or give you the best chance to win. And I think that obviously it worked. They got to the finals. They were, you know, in the top half of the league majority of the year. So I have nothing to say. But, you know, if things were different as a player, I could see you being more vocal. But for me, I just, you know, would have been quiet, continue to play my role, because whatever you're doing, it's working, and it's hard to argue with results in film.
Errick, is there anything you would like to ask Thomas as a player, from player's perspective, about this particular Kostas Sloukas move from Olympiacos to Panathinaikos? I mean, we will remember this move for ages, like we remember Spanulis' move. Is there anything what player is curious about to hear, or it's also kind of, you know, matches what just regular fans are asking? You know, how do you feel? Okay. How do you react it? Or there's something specific?
I have two questions. One question: how fast did y'all kick him out of the team group chat? Because I know it said, did it say Kostas Sloukas has left the group, or did y'all just start a whole new group chat? Because I know it's one or the other.
Kostas Sloukas has been removed from the group chat. I think that's the notification that I saw came up, but I don't think that he was dying to stay in the group chat either. So
for sure. And then number two.
By the way, sorry for interrupting, but who is the admin of the group chat of Olympiacos?
Shout out Adonis Katsikas. He's the one that makes everything go around here. So yeah, he was the one that had to do the booting. But yeah, shout out Katsikas. He's the man.
Yeah, I knew it was quick. And then number two, because a lot of times you guys are so close-knit. Olympiacos keeps the same core. You guys like to have that continuity, you know, within the team. It's why you're successful, because you don't just have talent, you have chemistry. Were there conversations, you know, maybe with you, Sloukas, or maybe with the other teammates, did guys try to reach out to get him to stay? Did you guys know there was a possibility he might be leaving? You know, take us through that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we all know that he, you know, wanted to play more. And, you know, you have conversations throughout the year, but I fancy myself as being pretty level-headed and consistent throughout the year, either through ups and downs. I try and, you know, bring the guys that are down up, and I try to keep the guys that are being too emotional or maybe too hot-headed, bring them back down to earth, you know. So it was a little bit of a battle throughout the season to you know, keep him involved with us and keep everybody on, the same page. And maybe not everybody, but to keep him, locked in and say, it doesn't matter if you're unhappy with this or unhappy with that. We have a chance to do something really special here, and that was to win the Triple Crown. That was what we were talking about all year. And at one point I told him, and I hope he doesn't mind that I'm sharing this, but I said, hey, if you want to leave after the season, okay. If you want to stay, okay. That's completely up to you. That's your own decision. But we have a chance to do something special here. So stay in the moment now. Let's do and achieve what the maximum that we can. If that's to go to the Final Four and lose, okay. But I thought this year it was ours to win and that we could have won it. That's not what happened. So I can't sit here and say coulda, woulda, shoulda. But I wanted to live in the moment, be everybody, all 12 guys in on this season, and try and win a Triple Crown. So that's the sort of conversations that we had throughout the year. It wasn't like, we need you to stay or we want you to stay. That's his decision, to make, and for his family, himself, his agent. That's not for me to say, dude, you need to stay here. But I did make it known, I enjoy playing with you and you're important to this team. And he chose otherwise, and that's his choice.
And by the way, when Kostas Sloukas has been removed from the team chat, from the team group, what was the first message you tried to communicate? Not necessarily in this chat, but among the players who discussed this situation. How did you try to not to react, but maybe to calm guys down? I'm not sure if that was a heated discussion or something. What was your position going through this weird situation?
Yeah, it wasn't really anything in the chat like that. I think the next thing that was said in the chat was it was me in a Greek uniform, and somebody else said you're ugly or something. I don't know, something, so just like classic stuff. But it wasn't like he's not in the group chat anymore, and we just start firing off, texts of "Thank God he's gone." Come on, that's not how it works. And it wasn't like anybody's talking behind his back either, So I wish I had some juicy stuff to tell you, or a funny story, or a funny comment that somebody made, but yeah, only it was just me made fun of. That's it.
But it doesn't matter if it was this situation or some other tough situations that you go through as a team. Is there in this team, is there this one guy who everybody waits for his, comment, for his opinion? Because, okay, that's what we all think, but let's wait for what Thomas thinks actually. Because, there sometimes in every community, whether it's a basketball team, BasketNews office, team and family group chat, we have those kind of vocal leaders that we want to hear their opinion. Who is this guy in Olympiacos team?
Before I say that name, I think it's important to point out the culture and the locker room that we built at Olympiacos and that Coach Bartzokas has built. When I first signed him, my first conversation I had with him was about how he wants good characters in the locker room, and he's really, really done that. So we have a good group of followers as well, a good group that's willing to follow. Nobody that wants to stray away, but for sure, without a doubt, the one guy that everybody's waiting to hear from is Pop. Papa Nikola.
I was gonna guess that.
He is not only vocal, but he also leads by example. You can obviously see throughout his entire career how he does whatever is needed for the team. This year, it was game 2. Sasha was out, Slu was out, I got ejected, and Pop became the scorer of the team. And he stepped right into the shoes and did it. He became the playmaker, scorer, running every pick and roll. And so he's never going to step outside of himself and say, coach, or he's never going to put himself over the team, and I think that's one thing that I respect about him, especially when you take a step back and you realize this guy's a legend. I can walk around sometimes and I can, get recognized. Some people take pictures, whatever. When I walk around with Pop, everybody wants a picture with Pop. Everybody wants to talk to Pop. Everybody wants to touch Pop. Everybody wants to, for him to sign something. for him to act with such humility within the locker room, but also with a very clear head on his shoulders is somebody that makes him somebody that I'm really happy to follow.
So Sloukas is gone. You guys signed Nigel Williams-Goss. Isaiah Canaan is staying. You're staying. It's already a solid backcourt, but from what I understood, you're still looking for a perimeter player, backcourt player. How do you feel? What profile player you need? What would be the best fit? You don't need to, mention names, but what kind of player would help this team the most?
Probably the guy. When you look at Nigel and myself, you would say solid. You look at McKissick. He provides a ton.
McKissick, Larenzakis.
Yeah. Both of those guys. I would say Cannon, McKissick, and Larenzakis. They bring a ton to the table, but you wouldn't just give them the ball, and say, "Hey, we need 25 tonight." We're away at Oaxaca. We need 25. So I think that guy, not a loose cannon, but either the guy that can create something out of nothing, a guy that can be an ISO player, for lack of a better word, a little bit of a wild card. Somebody that you can say, "Hey, take the keys, either drive us off the cliff or get us to our destination." So, but yeah, somebody that can score the basketball. And then that can really be with Peters being able to play the 3 and the 4, that can be anywhere from a 2 through a 4. Really, I think that's where we can sign it and we can make lineups work at any position.
Errick, do you have any particular names to offer for Olympiacos and Coach Bartzokas?
So it's really tough, right? So when I look at the roster, they got the shooter, Isaiah Cannon. I like that. Shoot on the run, off the screen, automatic, steps up some big shots. I like the slasher, McKissick. Gets to the hole, athletic, strong. They got the defender, the true point guard, the floor leader, and Thomas. I like what Nigel brings. I think he can do a lot of the things Sloukas can do. He's a better defender. He's more athletic, has better size. Doesn't shoot it as good off the pick and roll like Sloukas. He has a nice lean in mid-range area, lean in 3. But he can do a lot of the playmaking and some of the probably a better scorer than Sloukas, not as good a shooter. So I like that swap right there. And I think they're right. They're going to need a lot of points because you're talking about losing 18 to 20 points a night from the EuroLeague MVP. Sigma's a great pickup. I mean, he doesn't need the ball. He can pass. He can shoot. He can post up. He can do a lot of things, but he can't get you 18 to 20 nights. He can get you, 10, 11 points a game, run the show. So you need somebody who can create something out of nothing now, like you talked about, a pure scorer. Doesn't matter. He could be small because Thomas can take the 1 or the 2. Defensively, Nigel can also guard the 1 or the 2. So it could be somebody who's shorter or not, but it needs to be someone who can play. But the problem is they have so many guards. Where are the minutes going to come from? So if you have Nigel playing, Sloukas role, right? So let's say he's getting 20 minutes a night. Thomas is probably going to play 24 minutes a night, maybe 25. Isaiah was on the short end of the stick last year. Isaiah Cannon was probably playing, I didn't look at the stats, but probably 13 minutes a game, give or take. And then, he had some big games where obviously the minutes would be more, but the average was in that area. And then Larenzakis was probably getting around that same area. And then McKissick, his minutes were up and down. So, if you add another guard, where are you going to play? Are you going to start to play 3-guard front? Then you're cutting into Kostas Papanikolaou's minutes. If you wanted to move Alex Peters to the 3, they're cutting into those minutes. So, the problem is you do need someone who can score, but it might have to be a very young player who's just happy to be at that level where their play is going to be very sporadic. They're not going to be able to be consistently count on because no veteran, I think, is going to go into that who's in their prime and be willing to take that type of role because it's hard to get buckets when you're getting 15 minutes a game. You got to be a machine mentally, physically. You got to come in, work on your craft every day. You got to think, I know I got 3 minutes to make it shake. Coach is going to put me in. I got 3-4 minutes. If I go 0 for 2, 0 for 3, I'm coming out. I know how it was. I've been in that situation before. And I knew all right, when you come in, there's no getting warmed up. There's no getting a lather. There's no taking your time. You catch the ball, you attack. This is your role. And I don't think a young guy is equipped mentally to handle that. I think you're going to need probably a veteran that can handle it. But is he really going to want to take that situation when he maybe can find a role where he gets more minutes or more opportunity? So it's tough, but it is a great team. Everybody wants to live in Greece or in Athens. You know, the money going to be late, but, you know, it is a good place to play. I know they owe Thomas a check or two right now. I'm not
no,
even going.
sir.
What?
No, sir. We've been on time or early since the day I got here, brother.
Wow.
Early.
I'm impressed.
One time payday was on a Sunday. They said, here it is on Friday.
Oh, I like to hear that. I love when a team pays on time. I love that.
Shout out the front office.
They really turned the corner because when I played in Greece, it was a disaster. They owe presenters so much money and make your head spin. But anyway, I think that's what they need. But once again, they'll be in the same situation that they were in this year. There's going to be someone unhappy. So part of me says, roll the dice, right? Play with what you have. Let's see if it's enough. Give it 2 months. You know, if you're struggling in the preseason, if they're not playing how they need to, get a player, but don't get a player right away. Roll the dice, see if these 5 guys can lead you. And I think it's enough. I think they can do it. And if there's a sign of struggle, I would go sign somebody probably around December. You can go get a big name, maybe somebody who got cut off a training camp, or, you know, maybe something didn't go right there. And now, instead of you having to pay 10-month salary, you're only on the hook for 5 or 6 months. That's what I would do.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I had actually talked to Coach Bartzokas about this, and both of us said we like, you know, the squad we have. We're confident in the team we have. So I only answered like that because I'm on your podcast and I had to tonight.
I don't want y'all to get anybody. I think y'all need to play with what y'all have.
We're very solid from 1 to 5, first 5, second 5. We're super duper solid.
Actually, Errick made some good points about not rushing the market. And from what I hear, it's basically the stance that Olympiacos is taking at the moment. They're scanning the NBA market for some potential great pickups at this particular scorer position, but they're not in a rush to sign anybody. So who knows? Maybe they will start the season without signing anybody. And like last year, for instance, Tyler Dorsey became available. So who knows what kind of player will get available again. Not all the NBA free agents sign their contracts. So there might be some interesting names before the winter starts. And as Thomas said, I mean, your backcourt is already kind of packed. There's enough talent specialists in those positions. So maybe just let's see and wait how they're gonna step up and some of these guys to new positions, some of them to some new situations. But I just wanted to hear also, as we kind of solved Sloukas' case, replacing Vezenkov is probably impossible. There's no player who can replace and cover all the check boxes that Vezenkov covered. So
Mirotic, the only one who can.
Okay,
he can do it. He can do it better. He can do it better. And I love Sasha, but Mirotic can do everything he can do and then post up.
Okay. Although I really think that maybe my argument would be that I think that Vezenkov maybe would be willing to play for this particular Olympiacos system more than Mirotic. I mean, he was used to a different role. Maybe at this point of his career, he's different. But I thought that Vezenkov was a perfect fit for this whole system of Bartzokas. But anyways, I mean, you signed Luke Sigma, Alec Peters stayed. And I don't remember the particular case, but I read an article and there was a good point. I mean, sometimes there's no need to find a perfect replacement because there are some guys that are impossible to replace. So you just need to find ways how to solve the situation differently, what different pieces you need to put in your team, you know, to give some new advantages maybe, and just to move on from the player that left. So how do you see this adjustment moving forward? How do you see Luke Sigma signing as well?
I love the Luke signing. Just from a pure basketball fan and a guy that loves to have fun on the court, Luke has to be like a top 5 guy to play with. You know, his passing, you can cut, and it doesn't matter if you're open or not, you're going to have the ball. You know, I think he's going to be a blast to play alongside. And I think between him and Peters, they're going to cover a lot more of Sasha's productivity than people think. I think people need to think back to Peters in Baskonia and how well he was playing when he was playing the minutes. So I don't blame coach for playing it behind Sasha in some games not playing because Sasha was on a different level last year. But this upcoming season, I'm expecting a lot of really good things from Alec and more time. And then on the other side of that, Luke's best ability, I believe, is making everybody else around him better. You know, so he can, you know, pick up an easy 10 points of productivity just off of assists. You know, he makes foul, you know, that much better. He makes Milutinov that much better. Cannon, McKissick, all these guys, he's going to up their productivity. And I think it's going to be a 2-man job between them as far as picking up that productivity.
Yeah, I love Luke Sigma signing. I mean, when you look at the market, there's not a lot of 4s in general who are available. And then you look at someone who was of reasonable cost. Yes, you could have went and got maybe a Mirotic, but it would have cost you an arm and a leg, you know. And if you wanted to save some money but get a high quality player, I think Sigma's the perfect pick because you lose some playmaking in Sloukas, right? So you need someone to play make. Guess who can pass that ball? Guess who you can run some cuts and actions through with him at the high post, at that elbow area, making reads? Sigma. He's a better post-up player back to the basket than Sasha. He's a better passer. Difference is he doesn't shoot it like Sasha, but that's why you have Peters. And so like Thomas was saying, sometimes a player is so good to replace the production, you need 2 guys. And, you know, I'm looking at it. Sasha played about 30 minutes a game and, you know, in the EuroLeague averaged 18 points and almost 7 rebounds. And I think it's quite possible that those 2 players can replace that production. I don't think that's unstrained. I think you can pencil in Sigma in that, I would say 8 to 10 points a game, 4 assists, maybe 4 rebounds, really strong leader. And I think you can put Peters in that 6 to 7 points a game, shooting 3, maybe 2 rebounds. And right there you have Sasha, Vezenkov, and 2. Okay, obviously the impact won't be the same, but they can do those things. And I think there's a new dimension at it. And Bartzokas will have to make some tweaks to his offense because there were some things catered to Sasha's skill set. And now he's going to have to let Sigma have some touches because the way he passes the ball, the way Thomas can cut, the way he can find Ken on the weak side for shots, or McKissick cutting, or Pop is an excellent cutter. You give him in those backdoor actions, I think you'll see the tweaks, you know, but he'll put him in situations where he can succeed. And, you know, I think as far as I'm concerned, they did an excellent job in the market. And I think they can kind of take off where they started and, you know, start the season strong because they have all the pieces in place.
Yeah, so I hear Olympiacos will be fine. So that's good. Let's talk a little bit about some other teams, especially changed a lot during this offseason. And that's where another question from Beyond Plus member Igor comes. He has a question regarding backcourts. What's your opinion about Monaco, Zvezda, and Panathinaikos backcourts fitting together? I would rephrase this question. Which of these backcourts looks as the best fit for you? And just to remind everyone, for instance, Monaco has Mike James, Kemba Walker, Matthew Struzel, Jordan Lloyd, Elie Okobo, Jakubo Utara. Panathinaikos, even now it's weird to say Panathinaikos and to start the conversation with Sloukas, Jerian Grant, Vildoza, Grigonis, Kyle Guy, and let's say Panayotis Kalaitzakis. Some other players can also cover those minutes. And in Restar, we have Shabazz Napier, Milos Teodosic, Iago Dos Santos, Nemanja Nedovic, and many other guys that can also step up into these positions, like Rokas Giedraitis, Adam Hanka, or Branko Lajic. So who do you like as the best fit of these backcourts?
To me, I think Red Star has the most versatility. You know, I think that, yes, they have 3-point guards, but Teodosic can play the 2. Gudaitis can play at the 2, but he can play at the 3, or he's a 3 but can play at the 2, So I think some of the other teams have a little more not one-dimensional guys, but more offensively loaded guys. And I think Red Star has the best fit as far as guys. And I think whenever I looked at their roster, it just balanced out really well. You got guys that can be on the ball. You got guys that you can hide. You have some offensive threats, some defensive threats. Dos Santos had an amazing. It was really fun to watch during the German League playoffs this year. So yeah, I think that's with so many new pieces. I'm excited to see how they mesh. But for me, that's just the one that has the most balance.
You know me, I'm an offensive guy. You know what backcourt I'm going to pick? I'm going with Monaco.
It doesn't matter if we don't have any defense. Just score the ball and let's get up to 120.
They're going to be fun to watch. I just look forward to seeing it. Jordan Lloyd, Elio Kobo, I think those guys are very underrated. Everybody's going to talk about Mike and Kemba, and rightfully so. 2 elite playmakers and scorers, the things they can do in the pick and roll. I just don't know what teams are going to do if you put them both on the court together. You're going to double. You're going to try to do all that stuff that they do to Mike James. There's no way you're going to leave Kemba on the weak side, right? Or vice versa. So, I think they can really create more space just by them two simply being on the court. And I think that's a game changer. And then you come in with Jordan Lloyd, who's an excellent player in his own right, and Kobo. I just think the depth, how they can keep those guys coming, keep each other fresh. And then you have insurance plans, like you said, in case there's any injuries or in case there's any suspensions. You have insurance plans right there. And, everything's set and ready. But, as a basketball fan, it's just going to be fun to see them get in transition. I'm hoping they run a lot of high pick and rolls. Dante Hall rolling the alley-oops he's going to be catching, putting the shooters on the weak side. I'm hoping that they go 3-guard front. And they put maybe Jordan Lloyd on the 3 because he has the size and the strength to do it. So that would be interesting. But I still like Diallo. I want to see him get minutes too, but I just want to see that 3-guard front because 3 guys who can handle and shoot put a lot of pressure on the defense.
I don't have my favorite backcourt from these 3, but I would say I'm so impressed how loaded these backcourts are in the EuroLeague today. And these, just few of them. We didn't even include some other teams like, FS, Olympiacos, Milan. Let's see what they're going to bring, Fenerbahce. These are crazy loaded backcourts that we have here in EuroLeague that sometimes it's even hard to say which guy is the starter actually, which is the clear bench player, because they both kind of look equally great. So I know, Errick, it wouldn't be easy for you to find a job in EuroLeague with these backcourts, to be honest.
I'm not easy to guard, so but I'm old now. I'm 35, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's too many people who can guard me, so I think statistics back that up. Karchiak, we was in the final. We eliminated some teams, but when you get older, Europe doesn't look at American players the same. Maybe if I'd have got me a passport along the way, I could have extended the range. But Thomas gonna be about 38, still locking people up on the perimeter. I'm gonna be 38, getting buckets. It's gonna be all good.
Back to your point early in the pod, you were talking about how it feels like we're losing talent, but then we have this conversation, and it's like, man, we're loaded with talent. Everybody, money's flying around because there's a lot of guys to sign. So. I don't know. I think that's where it is. EuroLeague gaining talent or losing talent?
I would say. I would say we still have talent, but I think that I know that some people are a little bit afraid that this talent is getting aged. We have a lot of stars Errick, don't take it offensive, but a lot of stars. Like 33, 34 years old, sure, getting long-term big deals. And I know some EuroLeague, let's say, executives who questioned if this trend is good and if aging league is a good thing for the league and looking for the future and if it's alarming. So, yeah, you made a good point about raising this question. So we still have enough talent. Are we okay with this talent, or the age of this talent is a problem? So
I think as long as they keep throwing around money like they are now, they're going to continue to get talent. But also, basketball is a copycat league in every place, everywhere. When I first started playing overseas 14 years ago, it was about the true point guard. You look at Rondo, Steve Nash, everything was pass first. Guards really didn't play ISO. Traditional bigs were under the basket, a lot of post-ups. This was the game. Everybody had a position. There was no combos. There were no tweeners. There was a position. So scoring guards were not valued. Then you fast forward to my third year overseas, the game evolved. It changed. You have scores starting to emerge. You have guys, Derrick Rose, Steph Curry, all these guys starting to make a name. And so everybody changes, their approach and how to do that. I say that to say that a lot of the older guys are succeeding. LeBron James, Chris Paul, Stephen Curry, all these guys with science, with technology. If you're a professional, if you know how to take care of your body, you can really extend your career. I'm speaking for myself because I'm in this position. I feel like I haven't dropped off. If you look at the analytics, you look at the impact of the game, if you look at the eye, everything is still there. Go check the numbers. Numbers don't lie. So if you see those things, you can tell who's a professional, who's not. So I think it's not strange to see guys getting these deals who are older, because coaches like what they know. They like what's dependable. a 33, 34-year-old's not going to be out there doing stupid stuff. He's not going to be out in the club after losses. There's not going to be any adversity when it comes to something not going their way. They're not going to fold. They're not going to quit. They have that mental capacity to handle those type of things. So I think that's why you see it, just because the NBA is giving long-term contracts to those older guys and they're succeeding. And so I think it's a trickle-down effect. And as long as those old guys keep holding on the fort, I'm rooting for all my old guys out there. Keep playing well, because you can set the tone for the next generation and the next. So be professional, handle your business, and allow all these old guys to keep getting paid. Keep doing it, EuroLeague. Pay us old guys. We still can play.
Salaries for old guys.
There were big salaries thrown for former NBA guys, and I sent you a short list of. I actually put 3 names, but I made a count, and I think that I'm afraid we have 5 NBA guys in total coming straight from the NBA, directly from the NBA to Europe. And these are really solid names, starting with Raul Neto, who is expected to sign. It's not official yet, but he's expected to sign with Fenerbahce. He had a 6 points average and 2 assists average in the NBA. Willie Hernan-Gomez, 7 points and 6 rebounds average in the NBA, including the last year's Eurobasket MVP award. Kemba Walker, I told you guys, 19 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. That's his 12-year career average. There's also Frank Jackson, who signed with Asvel Villeurbanne, 25-year-old guard who averaged 8.5 points per game for Pelicans and Pistons. And now Juancho Hernan-Gomez signed a deal with Panathinaikos officially. 7 years in the NBA, 5 points, 3.5 rebounds. So what do you think? Which NBA player coming to Europe is in a pole position to succeed next season? And this, let's say, this definition of success is not necessarily related to the team success. But who do you see as a potential number one standout of this group?
Easy.
Go ahead.
Willie Hernan-Gomez. Shout out to my Pelican guy. He already knows European basketball. They have a glaring need for him to come in and do what he does, because they're losing Mirotic. It's a guy who kind of you can center your offense around. Hernan-Gomez is a guy I think that can play in the pick and roll, in that short roll area. He hit the mid-range jumper. He's really good back to basket. Nice face-up game. His versatility is excellent. I think he should have played more with the Pelicans. I liked the things he did when he was in there. This year he didn't play much, but the previous year, he had a bigger role. He was able to show the things he could do. But for me, it's a simple choice. He's the one who's in shape. He's been playing. He showed you what he could do at the Eurobasket. It was pure domination. Carried Spain with the help of Lorenzo Brown, and just the connection with them in the pick and roll was excellent. And I think, with the guards that Barcelona have, I think he'll be able to kind of, won't be the same because Lorenzo Brown's a guard on a different level, but he'll be able to form a connection with them, get some easy baskets. But I think he'll have a big season and he'll be a big part of Barcelona's success. I think he'll be in that conversation for first or second team all EuroLeague because he's that good.
100%. If they're gonna have a good year for Barca standards, a lot of it's going to be on him. He's stepping into the biggest role, the biggest shoes that he needs to fill. And then the EuroBasket performance last season, last summer was really, really impressive. And I think that that's kind of the last impression that he's had in Europe. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. The confidence that probably provided him within European basketball is probably a pretty high level of confidence. So, and obviously he's home, so that three things I think will propel him to have a pretty easy transition back over here.
I was just thinking, I mean, for me, Willy Hernangomez also looks like an easy choice, but at the same time, don't you think that Jan Vesely's presence might also kind of limit his playing time, which also translates into, having a little bit reduced numbers? How are they going to split those two? I mean, that's a great combination to have Willy Hernangomez and Vesely, but both requires minutes. So can they produce huge numbers playing, let's say, 20 minutes per game?
I think Hernangomez should play more. He should get more minutes because they need offense. You just lost a guy who can get you 20 in his sleep. Vesely is a great player in his own right, but he's never been a player who was considered a scorer. He's a guy who rebounds, who defends, who's versatile, who's dependent upon someone else to help get his offense. Hernangomez can go get his own buckets, just like Mirotic can get his own buckets. And that's why if they're going to do the minutes thing, maybe Hernangomez 24 minutes, Vesely 16, but it's not the same offensively. Okay, obviously Vesely brings more to the defensive side of the ball. And, I know they value that at the 5 position. And, maybe you can slide him to the 4 sometimes. He's not really a shooter, but some coaches like to play 2 bigs together who can't shoot. This is what they do now sometimes. I don't know why, but I'm not a fan of it. I like my 4 to be able to shoot. But, for me, it's clear. You don't go get him, pay him that amount of money, bring on a Spanish guy back home to share minutes with a defensive player. This is his home. This is, okay, Spain is where he's from. He's coming back. He's a big man. Everybody's going to come to the gym to see him. You put that boy in the game and you let him do what he do.
Yeah,
I honestly, yeah, okay.
I agree. Maximizing their potential, obviously they have different games. Maximizing what they can bring to the table by the lineups that they're in with, matchup. Maybe, if you have a guard that's not so much of a pick and roll player, put him in there with Willie, let him post the ball up. If you have a guy that's a pick and roll player and you want it, Vesely to go catch lobs, match those guys up like that. But I do agree. You're going to have him on the court a lot.
Yeah, he will do damage for sure. Although I really think that in this whole conversation, Frank Jackson is actually a little bit underrated name. I mean, it's a big body, athletic, high-paced combo guard that looks to score basically with every touch of the ball. He not necessarily involves others that well, but he can shoot, he can score in transition, and by EuroLeague standards, he will be elite athlete. And there's basically only Nando De Colo, and again, I don't want to sound like against old guys, but he's getting old. And sometimes he's on a load management, as we saw last year. So I think that Frank Jackson will get the keys to lead this team, and I see him making his name here as well as Elie Okobo actually did a couple of years ago. So Frank Jackson, 25 years old, he's still young, and he has talent. And I know that he was already offered to EuroLeague teams like last year or a couple of years ago. So I might think that he might be kind of a sleeper in this conversation with a lot of very talented players.
That's a good eye. I'm familiar with Frank Jackson because it's time with the Pelicans. So I've seen him. I watch a lot of Pelican games, obviously, but he can play. He's athletic. He has the size. He can do some things. It's going to be a small adjustment period, which is why I think Willie he's just dominant. But I could see Frank, coming out doing what he has to do. It's just the problem is if DeColo doesn't get hurt, there's not going to be a lot of minutes for him. Or if DeColo doesn't get managed because, you don't pay a guy that type of money. And he's like a French legend, a EuroLeague legend, one of the best players. He's going to play at least 25 minutes a night. So unless you're springing Frank between the 1 and the 2, that's only 15 minutes at the 2 position. So, that could be a small dilemma there. But I think Frank can be a combo and can be used there. And, he's bigger. He can play some three because basketball is just about if you can guard that position. You can play 1, 2, 3. Once you get the ball, everybody's playing pick and roll. Everybody's doing stuff. But if you can guard that position, you can get away. And I think he has the strength and the body type to guard it. So I think you got a good eye. That's a good pick, Donatas.
Man, to get some credit from Errick, that's huge. That's huge. You made my day. My day is already perfect, so I'm good. But just before we go, let's go to the last part of this whole podcast. I just wanted, Thomas Walkup will represent Greek national team in the FIBA World Cup, and there's this very interesting game on his schedule. August 28, Greece versus Team USA, second game of the group phase in Philippines. Did you already try? How did you try to visualize that game in your mind already?
I visualized the national anthem, the USA national anthem playing, and I thought that would be a little weird. But to be honest, I've haven't forgot my American roots, but also I'm so proud to be representing the Greek national team and the country of Greece that kind of goes out the window, So no, I didn't forget where I'm from, but I think there's a lot to be said for me personally about the Greek Basketball Federation believing me, the people of Greece being behind me. Through training camp, the guys have been so welcoming of a foreigner, So, there's a weird dilemma to that, but at the same time, having this sort of reception by the Greek people and this sort of belief, I'm happy to be on this side. I'm really happy to be on this side.
Did you receive many questions from your friends like, so now you're going to live in Greece for the rest of your life? Did you lose US passport? What were the weirdest question that might be actually natural for some people?
No, just from my mom. My mom was the one that asked if I would be living in Greece for the rest of my life.
She was concerned, right?
Yeah. But to be honest, I love Greece. Man, I love Greece. After my career, for sure, I will spend a ton of time here. Greek summers, you can't beat them. Just can't beat it. I love Texas, but it's not near as exciting as Greece, So, yeah.
That's how I know. That's how I know if you're committed. Are you going to buy a property in Athens? That's when I'll know.
We're working on it.
Okay, my God.
We're working on it.
I got beautiful city. I love Greece.
Yeah, it's the best, man. And especially after I signed the long-term deal, it was like, I'd be silly not to. So, yeah, I'm serious about it.
Okay.
Speaking about, American players joining national team, you need to understand my perspective. I'm from Lithuania. We never had a naturalized player. Serbia is the same. And we're talking about, these big basketball countries. So we're a little bit of nationalists here because we don't like other teams, upgrading with great American players and just, filling those gaps that they had because, we're dealing with the huge point guard problem for like last 15 years since we lost Šarūnas Jasikevičius to the retirement. And, this gap was huge, but still we tried to find ways, how to solve that thing. And I think, as a nationalist basketball fan, I think that national team should mirror the current stance of particular countries, basketball situation. If they lack of great point guard, let's say, maybe something is wrong with our basketball school, that we're not producing, skilled, smart, elite point guards. And as we compete in those competitions, it's, a good indicator for us that, hey, we have to do something with it. And we're not signing Lorenzo Brown, to solve those issues. So, there is this, I'm representing, I'm okay with Thomas now joining the Greek national team. I'm not putting you any blame. I think this is, I would call it a gap in FIBA rulebook that teams are using, and that's okay if you want to achieve your goals and if it fits both sides. Your situation is even different. You're playing in Greece already a few years, and you're going to stay here. You're working on buying a property. So you have roots, you have ties already with the country. But there are some other countries that are signing players who didn't know anything about those countries. So we feel bad about it. But I mean, as I said, I get it. It's a loophole in the FIBA rulebook that some teams are using to achieve their goals on the biggest stage of international national team basketball. But how do you see, you heard this nationalist basketball fan perspective. How do you see this whole naturalization process from the American player standpoint? That you're coming from America, from also, the birth country of basketball, basically producing so much talent worldwide, both in the NBA and Europe. Even last Eurobasket, I saw the statistics that there was this list of particular, countries and players from those countries making the biggest impact, and United States players make the biggest impact in the Eurobasket, which sounds weird, But how do you see this whole situation from your standpoint? That's a question for both of you guys, actually.
So first thing, there was an American point guard that played in Lithuania for 3 years that could have solved the point guard problems there. I think he had expressed some interest. And secondly, I really respect, the pride, of Lithuanians, the pride of Serbians, and to say no, we don't want, any naturalized players. I do respect that, and I respect your opinion on it. Now from the American side of it, is it something that from a young age, I would have said, yeah, I think it's super duper fair to just take your pick of the litter and say, hey, I want this guy, even though he's not from my country? No, probably not. But at the same time, from the American side, Errick, you've spent way, way more of your life in Europe the last 15 years than you have in the States. For the last 7 years, I've done the same. I'm at this point way more European than I am American. The time I think that I've given up, the time that other Americans have given up to be over here, to live over here, and not everybody does this, but to dive in the culture, to try and fit into society, all that stuff. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And from really day one in Greece, especially, that's what I tried to do. I tried to really fit into the culture. So I think it's fair from my standpoint that I received that.
Yeah, I think a lot of Lithuanians and Serbians will feel some type of way. And Spanish players felt the same way. Spanish people did too. Mm-hmm. Until you hold that gold, and then you forget all about that naturalized.
Solves everything.
I think the Lithuanians would forget. I think the Serbians would forget. And as we saw, the Spanish forgot, because they had a lot of things to say about Lorenzo Brown. All over the media, the interviews, a lot of things. Some of his own teammates, they was the main ones hugging him and embracing him. So winning cures it all, as we talked about before. I do think when you've played in the country, it's different. You've played somewhere, you start to pick up some of the language. You're embracing the food, the culture, the people. Thomas has been there for a while, and he's going to continue to be there. I don't know, 4-year extension, whatever he signed. That's someone who's going to be a man of the people. It's different. And I understand people want to keep the roster the same, but for me, it's pointless. If you have a glaring need, an issue, just add one guy. It will make it better. You'll have those issues fixed, and then it will motivate those players. That's the problem. There's no one to come take their spot. You bring somebody in that can come take their spot, that's going to get them in the gym. That's going to get them working. Oh, some American came in, got naturalized, took my spot. Guess what? All those other young kids who play point guard, shooting guard, they're going to be in the gym because they know nothing's guaranteed. When you have these rules that help players get minutes or get roles when maybe they aren't deserving, it protects them. Foreigner limits, limits with people on the court, the Russian rule, all those type of things. All that does is handicap players to be lazy because I get a job because I have to be on court. I get a job because I have to be on a roster. That's all that does. But when you're a foreigner, you have to be good or you'll get cut. You'll get fired. That's just how it goes. And it's always been like that. So if you want to see growth and development within the national team, within certain positions, a lot of fire up somebody and put them in that position. So, from American perspective, I think it's like Thomas said, you almost don't feel American because you're gone so much. Yes, I have a house here. Yes, I have properties here. I have all that businesses. Yes, but I'm gone. I was gone this year from June 19th is when I got home, and I left August 20th. Actually, the 19th. I arrived on the 20th. So I counted. I think I was home this summer. I'll be home 68 days. So if we don't deserve a passport, I don't know who does. We're home this is our home. So
I feel like my American passport should be taken away. I'm never there.
Barely there. Like, so I understand. Like, I love that people love their country and what they've been through. And I know the history, of Lithuania and all that stuff, from having, a teammate like Kuzmiskis. And, I know how he feels about naturalization as well. I think it's just a Lithuanian thing. But if you can't beat them, join them. You got to adapt with the generations, with the growth of basketball, with everything that changes, or you're going to get left behind. And you're going to be sitting there looking at Spain or the U.S. or Greece holding their medals, and you're going to say, "What if? Just jump in, get you a player."
That's bad.
No.
That's bad. That's really bad.
Hey, would you rather be a finalist with a foreigner naturalized, or would you rather barely make it in, stumble out, get exit in the early rounds, but you didn't have a foreigner, but you didn't win? Which one is better? Which one's better for the country and for the growth of basketball? Winning. Be a winner. Be a winner, Donatas. Make winning decisions. Get the people on board. Come on, Lithuania. Get on board. It's okay. It's only one foreigner.
You would be a good recruiter, actually, but I will be that Lithuanian. Like, I feel that there will be a lot of those Serbian guys. No, we're okay with not even qualifying to the next stage instead of having American help us to get a medal or something. Now, I don't have that kind of radical opinion, to be honest, but I just felt that this rule thing, changed the whole motion of the national team basketball, because it's okay. Some countries, it basically started with less talented national teams trying to upgrade the naturalized players. But since many teams started doing it, and some teams started winning stuff, like Slovenia with Anton Randolph in 2017 and young Luka Doncic, then they made Rasho Nesterovic made another great GM signing with Mike Tobey, making a great fit with Luka Doncic. I mean, other teams saw that, these teams are taking great players and they're, stealing spots, stealing medals from us. So we also have to step up and, to play according to these rules. So it basically became inevitable to naturalize anybody. So I really believe that in some time, both Lithuania or Serbia will have their own Thomas Walkupas or Errick McCollumas on their national teams. So I have a
solution. I have a solution. I think this would be fair. You should take the population of each country and make a number for those smaller countries that have a smaller population, because it means they're probably going to have less talent to pull from. And then they should be able, based on whatever that number is, people under this amount, under this certain amount of millions of people, they can naturalize a player. And then countries over this amount can't. I think that's the most fair way, because you can maybe even the odds for the smaller countries that don't have as many guys to pull from.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
So in this case, Kyle Anderson is not joining China national team for $1 million, right?
Shoot, they could have came and got me for half of that. I gave him a discount.
Just a very, very last question, guys. The last question from also BN Plus member Adrian Avner. The question was, can you ask them why Americans value the Olympic Games so much more than the World Cup? For every Olympic basketball team, they got all stars, and for the World Cup, it's just the rising stars. I feel like it has to be money-based. Does the US pay for the Olympics if the team wins a medal but doesn't care about the World Cup? Probably is not the case, but I would like to hear your perspective.
Well, NBA guys make 200 million, 300 million, 100 million. They're not worried about no little bonus. These guys are making 50 million a year. Like, the bonus that they had doesn't move them. And they're making 20, 30 million off the court if they're superstar status. So guys play all year. They train, they take it serious. People have families. People have kids. Basketball is just what they do. It's not who they are. So oftentimes you don't want to play all year basketball. You don't get to enjoy your summer. You don't get to spend time with people that you care about, especially when you've been gone all year on the run. And if your kids start to get older, they're starting to have events themselves. They're starting to play AAU, high school games, whatever the case may be, and you're missing those things. Then you have to add the fact that people really care about their NBA team. This is the team that's paying you $40 million per year. You want to make sure that that free national team, yes, it's an honor to play for your country, but it's almost like the team that pays you your salary, that takes care of your livelihood. What if you're in a contract year? What if you're in a certain situation? Are you going to go to some little tournament in the middle of nowhere and play? Probably not. You're probably going to focus on your season that you had and getting this contract that can change not only your life, but your kids and their kids and generational wealth. So the U.S. players take basketball serious, and that's why they're not going. Because if you're not 100% mentally locked in and 100% sold on it, you shouldn't go. You should stay back and you should give that position or spot to somebody younger. And it's good for our development. We send younger players, and guess what happens? Eventually, they're going to be on the team that's going to the Olympics, but they're getting those minutes. They're getting that development. They're growing. So ironically, it's helping the growth of basketball by getting these young players acclimated and getting them a chance to show something when normally we would take the A squad and, probably would win by 20 points every game. Now this makes it more interesting, makes the games closer, but it also grows the younger generation and it makes them have to step up.
Yeah, well said. I think another point is way more simple, but the popularity of the Olympics. That's like a bucket list thing. I don't know if every kid grows up thinking I want to play in the World Cup, but to play in the Olympics is a huge, huge deal. That's a major achievement. And for some guys, it's like, hey, this is the one Olympics I might be able to play in. Maybe one or two, but I think could be just as simple as that too. Everybody wants to play in the Olympics. It's a huge deal. The amount of exposure that guys get from the Olympics is even bigger than the World Championship. So, I don't think it's so complex.
Yeah, for me, the worst part is that 6 years ago, FIBA started this FIBA qualifier system that's included national team games during the season in November and February. It kind of sparked a big conflict between EuroLeague and FIBA. It changed the whole ecosystem of European basketball, and it started this, whole EuroLeague FIBA war. And the main idea was to make the FIBA World Cup the most important national team competition and to make it even above the Olympics because, well, Olympic basketball tournament is not organized by FIBA, so they're not getting any money, so they can make money through the World Cups. But I think that, of course, it's not just about the system, not about the FIBA. It's also injury-related problem. But I think that this year in this FIBA World Cup, we just have two all-NBA team members locked for the competition. It's Luka Doncic and somebody else. I really forgot the name, but I counted two guys. And of course, if Jokic was there, if Giannis was, he's still, questionable, doubtful. It's not sure if he's in and out. If they were there and they had intentions to play, the number would be a little bit bigger. But I compared it to the 2014 FIBA World Cup. And, it's a difference on one or two guys, which means that this whole change and sacrifice didn't make FIBA World Cup the main competition yet. So I think that as a international basketball, we are losing. We just sacrificed too much, making this whole calendar so, messy. Where we sparked this war, we stopped thinking about the growth of European basketball, instead started, getting into inner wars. And now we are losing some markets to Japan, Australia, and, etc. So that's the sad part for me as the, European basketball fan. And yeah, they're still losing to Olympics importance-wise. FIBA World Cup didn't become a bigger competition. So that's the sad conclusion of the whole conversation, of the whole podcast that I tried to avoid, but yeah.
Thanks for sending us out on a good note.
Yeah, but that was a great conversation, guys. I'm really happy to have you two it already even got dark in Athens.
I know. I didn't want to
Thomas.
step away during the interview, but I could have used a light or two on it here, huh? You got the brightness up on my computer.
But yeah, that was a entertaining, quality conversation. Really glad to hear your perspective on EuroLeague things, on national team basketball things, because that's also the idea of this whole podcast, to give our perspectives, to give platform for players, explain their own perspective, and to educate for all of us from these conversations as much as possible, even though sometimes we're giving some bad takes or something, but shit happens. So thank you guys for joining in. That was a really big pleasure to have you both on the podcast.
Likewise, it was a blast.
Thanks for having me as always, and thanks for joining, Thomas. We appreciate you.
Yep.